Well, we got everybody co-hosted that we need to co-host. Laurentia, I got to get you back on co-host, my friend. You can help us control the room in case we get a large influx of people. It shouldn't be too many people on today's call.
Okay, I'm mobile, but I'll pay attention to.
Oh, okay, no worries. Yeah,
yeah.
you're fine. We got Brother Andre as well. All right, so Reverend Shorter's here, Dr. Rodriguez. All right. So I'm sure our fearless GBA leader will pop in at some point and kind of say a few words, but I want to get started because we have relatively little bit of time for these calls. I know last time we kind of ran out of time for questions, so I'm going to jump right in. Any objections, Bob? All right, cool. So greetings and really welcome to the Cryptocurrency Working Group Public Forum. So this is the one that's taking place for March 2025. We've had two before. This is our third one for this cause. Let me let Stephen. The CWG is really, it's an initiative of the Government Blockchain Association, or the GBA, and it's committed to educating both public and private sector professionals about the impact of digital assets. You guys know them as cryptocurrencies, and really blockchain technology as it relates to financial systems, governance, global economic development. I'm Charles Anderson. I do business intelligence for EazyBot, as well as resource development for the company. EazyBot's a software company. We support things like financial empowerment through automated algorithmic crypto trading. And we are collaborating with the GBA to help drive blockchain education. We support the development of the blockchain maturity model that is founded by the GBA. And so the CWG, or the Cryptocurrency Working Group, it's co-chaired by Drs. Christopher Smithmeyer of Black Wallet Limited and Dr. Muhammad Ali of EazyBot, co-founder of EazyBot. And so today we're going to focus our attention on a really big topic, profound global importance related to this topic, and that's how blockchain technology can enhance economic inclusion. We want to talk about how it can expand access to financial services and really reduce the growing disparities across global communities. And so you got about 1.4 billion people worldwide that are still unbanked, right? And many more have limited access to secure, low-cost financial services. And so blockchain-based financial tools, digital assets, and decentralized finance, DeFi, those things offer really transformative potential to close these gaps, these disparities, is making capital and financial tools more accessible regardless of geography or income level. And so from only about 31 million global crypto users in 2017 to 2024, 7 years later, over 833 million, right? Digital asset adoption continues to grow at exponential levels. And so this movement reflects a really increasing demand for alternative, decentralized financial solutions that foster things like independence, transparency, trust. And that's what blockchain is all about. So in the US, recent policy moves, including that executive order that you guys probably heard about on strengthening American leadership in digital financial technology, these kind of things signal federal commitment to making blockchain tech a tool for equitable economic growth. And so EazyBot is a part of that, but the GBA is really leading the charge when it comes to developing blockchain technology to a point where it's accessible and trusted and ready for public and private sector to depend on and deploy. And so key issues that our speakers may address today: how blockchain can reduce barriers to entry for the unbanked and the underbanked, DeFi, stablecoin, CBDCs as tools for financial inclusion. We're going to talk about things like the intersection of regulation and innovation in financial access. You might hear a conversation about impacts of the US federal and state crypto policy on our inclusion efforts. Real world examples of blockchain platforms serving excluded populations. That's really what it's about. And some community-based approaches to digital asset education and reinvestment. We got to empower the world to be able to take advantage of that underlying technology in the crypto space, blockchain, right? And so with the potential to democratize finance, to empower communities and bridge wealth gaps, blockchain it's more than a technology, right? It's a movement today. And so we spotlight how public policy, how global innovation and programs like GBA, EazyBot, that are putting things out there, how we're turning this vision into reality. So I do want to welcome our guest speakers who are going to be talking about this important topic. And let's dive into this important conversation. Guest speakers, I really want to thank you for your time today. Thank you for being part of the global dialogue here. We have Ryan Munn here, who's a guest speaker. We have Dr. Josina Rodriguez. We got Reverend Alex Shorter, and I believe Dr. Christopher Smithmeyer is here as well. And so I'll allow those guys to come on. Go ahead and do your introductions, and let's dive into this conversation. And Gerard, if you have any words that you need to say, feel free to jump in yourself, my friend. And you guys should all be co-hosted, and you have opportunity to unmute and say some words.
Well, I'll jump into that silence. This is Ryan Munn, Vermont chapter lead with GBA since 2017, generally working across sectors in strategic initiatives, interconnecting traditional business and blockchain. Have spent a lot of time on infrastructure, insurance, financial instruments, and so and generally digital transformation and business processes. So really excited to be here and continue the conversation, help people explore cryptocurrency and blockchain and where it may impact their lives and their communities.
Absolutely, and welcome back, Ryan. We appreciate your presence on our last public forum last month. You had great insight to give to the conversation related to cryptocurrency and policy. So thank you for turning up this month and contributing to the dialogue. So we appreciate your presence, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
Alex Shorter, come on in, man. Tell
hello, everyone. I'm now Reverend Alex Shorter. I'm a community leader here in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm a project director for the GBA. I am also the operational global leader for the USA. I'm a smart city practitioner and a consultant in AI and fintech. I'm also a new member of EazyBot, which I'm really liking so far.
Thanks.
And I'm just happy to be here and be part of such a smart and capable group of leading the world into the future of finance and financial management.
Thank you, Reverend Shorter. We're happy to have you on the call. Thank you for being part of the EazyBot family and lending your voice to the conversation. I would like to ask Dr. Rodriguez to come in and introduce herself. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting her just yet, but she is part of the GBA, and anybody part of the GBA it's family for me. So come on in, Dr. Rodriguez.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the opportunity and organizing this excellent opportunity to learn and to share ideas and thoughts. By the way, it's my first year in the United States. So for me, it's a historical moment, everything that is happening from this side of the world, as I spent all my life in Europe and I contributed for the first version of Mika. So I am like a dinosaur. And sorry?
I mean, that the first year in the United States, we could have a whole webinar on how crazy you might think the United States is, but welcome for sure.
Yes, definitely, Charles, everything. I try to organize a couple of thoughts and ideas and the perspective from the beginning of the year we can say that we have a lot of emotions, and it's not by slowing down. So it's happening a lot of things in worldwide scenario, but we can say that the United States, it's creating big perspectives. It's the time to do a lot of things. It's new projects, a lot of opportunities. I started to analyze when a period that I spend a lot of time explaining all the time what is blockchain, that is possible, that is not a scam. So in the other part of the globe, and with another kind of reality. So thank you for having me. And undeniable, it's a historical moment that CBA has a lot of work to do, and it's quite a very interesting time. So thank you for this opportunity.
Absolutely. We are excited to have you here. You'll lend a very fresh perspective on things. So Dr. Smithmeyer, come on in, my friend, introduce yourself. And as a reminder, ladies and gents, Dr. Smithmeyer is co-chair with Dr. Ali for the cryptocurrency working group coming out of the GBA.
Hi, everybody. I know most of the people on this call. I'm Dr. Chris Smithmeyer. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Black Wallet Limited, and we are a stablecoin 2.0 ecosystem solution company. And we also do large-scale tokenization projects for real-world assets in the 50 million plus range. And we do a lot of consulting and large-scale asset transfer remediation. Getting involved with this group has been great because we are now starting to talk about building out solutions and building out standards within the field. And the more we build these standards and the more we bring people into it, I did like what Dr. Rodriguez was saying, that we're bringing the world into a place where people don't have to think it's a scam anymore. They don't have to think it's new technology. It is here. We are moving out of the wild, wild west. We are bringing civilization with us. And we are building a system that people can trust, people can rely on, and people can allow their wealth to grow and have access to it whenever they need to. And I'm super excited to be with this panel.
And we appreciate your presence. And Gerard, feel free to jump in and introduce yourself if you like. Executive director and co-founder of the GBA. Gerard Daché is on the call as well. I do want to jump into our discussion, and I'm going to start us off with just a broad question, right? And so our topic today, again, is blockchain technology's role in economic inclusion. And that's something that's kind of near and dear to my heart. I have a background in really fundraising and helping underprivileged or underserved communities. And I do see blockchain technology as that edge that can be used to help individuals get ahead. And so I guess I want to ask overall, as a general question, what does economic inclusion mean, and why would it be important today relative to blockchain technology? And kind of coupled with that, how is blockchain going to help anybody who doesn't have access to traditional banking or is kind of underprivileged or underserved? What's the connection? Why do we even care? If that makes sense. So let's start our conversation there. So anyone can jump in on that. I won't be like Paul and call on people directly, but feel free to jump in.
Well, I'll jump in. This is Ryan Munn. And, I recently read an article, and this kind of goes really back to the core of, when this was the Wild West and what makes this powerful. There's a story about a village in Zambia where there's been a substantial amount of time between raising investment and getting a renewable energy source installed. And one of the big challenges there is that there isn't a huge customer base. Anywhere rural has this challenge. I live in Vermont, and like 30% of Vermonters aren't connected to the internet. Now, granted, there's a good portion of those that maybe don't want to be. There's an element there, but there's also folks that just simply can't get good connectivity. And it's because there's not enough customers there to justify the companies to come out and invest and make it happen. And so the same issue, this particular village in Zambia, forget internet, they didn't have power. Right, the average home, the homes all around the village, the businesses, they didn't have electricity. Now, there was the initiative to get that power supply built, but it was actually quite a substantial amount of time between getting it built and then actually connecting the first customers too, because there's more cost in getting them connected. And frankly, you need a customer that can afford to buy the electricity, right? And so bridging that gap is a Bitcoin mine, a substantial customer on that local grid that is able to not only pick up that power and pay a decent rate for it, but also grow itself to create more demand and really enable a sustainable customer base to justify further investment in that community to get more people connected. And so then you have, not so many homeowners right away. You have some, homes, but businesses, right? And it's not a complex tech business. It's a hairdresser that gets connected. And now instead of, only scissors, they've got a clipper that they can use. And now they're one of the businesses on the street that has lights after dark and brings not just customers in the door, so they're more prosperous, but also the community hangs out there, right? And it creates that ecosystem that grows and thrives. And so I felt like that was a really powerful story. It was fairly recent, that really illustrates how this technology is making an impact anywhere where there are underprivileged and prosperity limited communities, and it starts to open those doors and create prosperity.
Fabulous. Good point. Good point. And then I guess there's a bit of additional education that goes along with that. If people are making use of blockchain technology, that means they're aware of it, but they're learning more about it. So I love that you bring that up. If you don't mind, share that source. If you can find it, share that source with us in the chat. Alejandro, come on in. And Alejandro, please go ahead and introduce yourself, actually, so people know who you are.
Okay. Hi, guys. My name is Alejandro Mandujano. I'm responsible for GBA Global Operations. And you may find me in lots of places sometimes. So for example, I met Josina from the Galter and the association. So talking about what Ryan mentioned about Zambia, we're in contact with 3 associations in Zambia in which we are offering for that type of project using deep-in solutions.
Okay.
Because with deep-in, you can just gather the community and invest in their own, let's say, power generation system. So the base is not going to be Bitcoin. It's going to be maybe a different token that we have just to discuss that with Chris and define which type of digital asset we should pick and how are we going to measure the cost of the value of the token. But in any case, that's how we just decentralizing wealth. If we just give that to the big companies, wealth is not going to get to the people. And now the people needs to understand things and start getting knowledge to get wealth. We're just doing some things with a guy that is also developing a solution for preserving the health of women in remote areas in Africa, because when they are pregnant, nobody cares of what they're doing,
Right.
how they manage to live, how they sustained. So this solution just develop another type of crypto in which the source is how to maintain women health in those nine months and 1 year after the child is born. So we need to be more open to different solutions, and I am always just enforcing people to talk about cryptos with purpose. We need to find a way in which avoid just talking about cryptos and the usual sing-song of buy me because you're going to get a millionaire, and just use this solution to get better. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Did you have something, Dr. Rodriguez?
Yes, let me take it. By the way, I was born in Brazil, so I had a contact with different systems, and when you can say that 1.4 billion outside from the financial system, it's true. So let me take you not to South America, but to Kenya, a country that everybody knows that from Africa with a lot of problems, and now they have a fantastic example with mobile money like M-Pesa. But that's where Celo do you know, everybody, that Celo Foundation comes in an mobile first blockchain platform focused on the financial inclusion. And it's quite amazing because Celo enables people in this moment, not only sending and all transactions in stable coins, but we just need a phone. And what is truly powerful for today, it's because it's not a scam, it's a real example that's happening in Kenya in this moment, is the way that local communities is using blockchain, like grassroots economics. If someone wants to Google it, it's interesting because they are creating community currencies and they are creating their community scores. So it's fantastic. Access for loan, it's dependent from the credit from the community. So human-led business, informal works, and underserved families are now accessing digital payments. And with liquidity and all financial tools that you never ever imagined. So that shows something very important, that because we are living now in the United States, a lot of opportunities that we can develop. By the way, I'm a consultant to small and medium structures to implement blockchain, but blockchain doesn't not need to wait for full internet access.
Sure.
If someone is connecting with structures like NGOs, we just need it's a perfect infrastructure that can solve a lot of problems. So in my PhD, I studied how blockchain can change business models, and it's happening now. So we have amazing examples how inclusion is doing this moment, 2025. So it's just to brush up with a real example in Africa.
Fabulous, fabulous. So there's a bit of that adoption conversation that we're talking about as this blockchain technology continues to grow worldwide. More and more people are adopting it for different use cases, one being that piece of economic inclusion. So thank you for that example. I got a question, and Allison, if you had a comment or question, come on back up. I got a question for Dr. Smithmeyer related to regulation in general. And so the conversation being about economic inclusion and how blockchain can be pivotal in changing that economic inclusion dynamic. And so I got to consider with reference to regulation, and it doesn't have to be on a global scale, but when we're talking about blockchain tech, economic inclusion, how does regulation, or I should say, what role should regulators play in making blockchain safer and more accessible for everyone? There's quotes around everyone, but what are your thoughts on that? What role should regulators play in making blockchain safer and more accessible for everyone?
I think you hit the nail on the head with the question. Their job is to make blockchain safer and more accessible to everyone. And the way they do that is by promoting a regulatory environment that allows business to lead. Because if we try to over-regulate, what we're going to do is we're going to make it so the only people that can function are criminals. Because people that follow the laws follow the laws. I mean, we're going to do the right thing regardless of what the laws are. But whenever you start over-regulating, and we need to know what the rules are. Like, if you can't follow the rules if you don't know what they are. So I'm not saying we don't want to have any. I'm not a full-on degen that wants no rules and just doing the my code is law thing. But what we want to see is clear and concise rules that can be implemented from the poorest person to the richest person within society. And a lot of what we're seeing coming out of Washington and Berlin and Singapore, they're focusing more on the top end. They're focusing more on companies like some of the companies that are in this call that can actually comply with multi-million-dollar or even billion-dollar regimes.
There's a big cost.
Yeah, there's a big cost. And one of the things with the DCBAS IGF UN thing that we put out for the model law that we really focused on was keeping the tax burden on people down low so that not only companies like Microsoft and Facebook can compete in this space, But smaller companies like my company and even smaller companies than my company and smaller nations can also compete on the same stage. And when I just wanted to hit one more point on the unbanked and the underbanked. When we start looking at around the world, we've also got to look here at home in the United States too at the people that are underbanked, because there are probably about 30% of the population that either aren't banked or don't have the right banking tools that they need. And by providing that through the blockchain, we can provide a protection level that is unprecedented, that the elderly, whenever they're scammed, you can go and track down who scams them. Whenever young kids are not
Yeah.
getting paid for their work, you can track that. And projects like we're putting forward with the GBA are really pushing that forward and saying, hey, let's get this on the blockchain so that people can quit being scammed.
Yeah, and I'm really proud of the work the GBA is doing. And I know we have a dynamic of education first, which is pivotal to someone getting into the space and understanding the technology and how it can be used. But there's also that element of making sure the technology that's being deployed is trustworthy and accessible. So I'm proud of that work. I'm glad you mentioned that. Speaking of the GBA, we got Gerard Daché, co-founder, executive director of the GBA. Come on in with your comment or question, Gerard.
Thanks, Charles. And I've been listening the whole time. I just wasn't able to get to my microphone earlier. So I want to really talk about, for folks that are kind of left behind, a big reason why that is oftentimes is that they haven't had access to the education, and you just mentioned this, right? And so, I've talked to a bunch of folks. In fact, our lead in Africa, I talked to him about certain things. He said, Gerard, look, you have to understand what people need is they need skills, right? Because until they have a skill, you can give them some money, but they're not going to get out of the hole that they're in. They need skills so they can earn a living. And right now, with the technology space changing, with AI and Web3 and IoT and some of these things, we have a responsibility. If we want to help people, we got to get them skills, which is why we've partnered with the Blockchain Academy so that any GBA member can literally get thousands of dollars worth of education, training, and skills for free from the GBA site. This is like developer training. It's important to understand that in this space, you don't have to be a developer, right? There are requirements for business analysts. There, people that want to break out on their own and do entrepreneurial stuff. But there's so many businesses and companies that are starting up in this space right now, and they need people, and those people, again, are in marketing and communications, right? They need people to help be market makers. They need developers. They need people who can communicate with users. They need subject matter experts in all of the different fields that blockchain is. So now, unfortunately, you can't see this unless you're a member. But when you log into the GBA, there's a link that says certified training. And but you can, if you go to the Blockchain Academy, just Google the Blockchain Academy, all of that training is available to GBA members for free. So that's a huge way. So you get some skills, you get some training through the GBA and the working groups. You can get connected with companies that are building solutions and actually doing stuff. I think Alejandro talked about actual utilities, and they're building. And you can get paid in tokens, you can get paid in fiat. But I really think that the whole way that you get, down that path is it's got to start with getting some skills that can translate into capital, and then you can use your time and your capital to invest in projects and then start making dividends and rewards. So I can't say enough about how that's just a huge component of what we need to do. Anyway, that's it for me.
No worries. And so I think one of the biggest barriers to people actually adopting the tech or getting involved is that lack of education or that lack of know-how. But let's actually talk about that. I think any one of the guest speakers can come up with several examples of traditional institutions failing consumers with things like fraud or scams, et cetera. And I think the negative stigma of cryptocurrency is one of the reasons why people are reluctant to get involved with blockchain technology and digital assets in general. But what are the biggest misconceptions that keep people from trying the digital asset space, so to speak, or even talking about blockchain technology? And again, we've seen in in the United States, at least, there are like 6 major banking institutions, and they have billions of dollars over the past 25 years worth of fines related to mishandling customers. And so I think the conversation around crypto often has the word fraud or scam surface, and people tend to associate that with other blockchain technologies. So what do you guys feel are some of the biggest misconceptions that keep people from making use of blockchain technology, and thereby companies not wanting to get involved with the deployment of blockchain tech? Come on in, Ryan.
Yeah, I think, this sort of overlaps with your last question too about, regulators. It's, this technology is regulatory technology, right? And so the first thing ultimately is that education. Regulators are all government employees. They have access to GPA and all that training, right? So
yeah, for free.
they
You're
should
right.
be in there already. And if they're asking the community what's needed, but they haven't actually engaged in that education, we, the community, and not just us, but average citizens, need to know that these resources are out there and that they need to call those regulators out, those government leaders out to go get the education because it's available to them. And then the other piece of this technology being regulatory technology is that, it's the reason why it's so well known for scams is because when people use crypto to scam, they get caught, right? It's track and trace built in. So if you're a criminal dumb enough to do things on blockchain, you're probably getting caught, and that's going to hit the news. And the contrast to that is that in the traditional financial system, there are criminals operating today that have been operating for years that we still just do not know about. So therefore, it's not top of mind in the public space that, hey, the actual balance of crime is that in the crypto space, it happens quickly and it gets caught quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it doesn't get caught quickly, it gets caught eventually, because eventually that crypto has to hit the real world for it to be of value to anybody. And then that leads to the path of actually tracking down where it came from and who was harmed in that. And so, that's the biggest piece of the story that I hope the public can learn, is that there's so much we don't know about the crime and fraud and abuse that's still going on in the traditional system. And those things impact our towns, the investment in our communities, and they're the source of all this fraud, waste, and abuse that exists today. And the reason why we hear so much about crypto fraud is because it gets caught. And that's where we want all business to be forced to operate. We need the regulators to say, hey, forget regulating blockchain. Let's regulate business and enforce that business uses blockchain for regulation. And then we'll catch everybody that's doing the wrong thing. Starting with healthcare, we can, address the $1.4 trillion in fraud, waste, and abuse annually in that sector alone.
Fabulous point. And the follow-up to that would be the obvious question: is blockchain safe for everyday people to use, and how can people protect themselves? But I want to give Greg and Laurencio opportunity. But guest speakers, be thinking about that. Is blockchain safe for everyday people to use? How can we protect ourselves in this space? But Greg, come on in, my friend. You should be able to unmute.
Awesome, thank you. Yes, so I'm also offering some educational classes on Bitcoin specifically, and I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm probably going to work out something with Gerard about getting it to GBA members for free. But just wanted to throw that out there as we mature. If there are questions about Bitcoin specifically, one of the other things that I had heard mentioned earlier was people talking about not having internet access being a problem. And of course, Bitcoin actually is the only cryptocurrency currently that can be traded without internet access.
Without internet, right?
Right. Through the Blockstream satellite offering. So I had some other thoughts earlier, but I didn't have my hand raised then. So
no worries.
I try to keep it relevant here. Sorry. Looking forward to working with you all. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, absolutely. And pleasure having you as part of the GBA. I think you mentioned that you got involved with digital assets back in 2010 when it was first coming out. That's like Bitcoin.
That's right. That's
First
right. I'm one of the
cryptocurrency.
old school Bitcoiners.
And
And
so-
and I'm looking forward to everything that the space is going to bring. Bitcoin has now a Web3 offering in Rootstock. I don't know if y'all have heard of Rootstock yet. It's a Bitcoin side chain where you can you can actually launch Solidity contracts and stuff like that denominated in Bitcoin. So
fabulous, fabulous. Laurencio, come on in, my friend.
Yes, good. Whoops. Good morning. I'm happy to be part of this panel, this esteemed panel. My question is, there's a lot of, first of all, this has so many levels. This discussion has so many different levels: regulation, education, businesses, government. But my question to a panel is, when we talk about education, we're kind of really speaking about the end user. But when it comes to regulation, those people who make these regulations, what are the efforts to channel the education to those people so that they know what a blockchain is? 'Cause a lot of times you watch C-SPAN and you have these legislatures that don't have a clue and are making laws and regulations. So what are the efforts to target some of this education to those people who really are responsible for making these regulations, and that way we don't get over-regulated or under-regulated, and we all speak the same blockchain language.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, and I'm not a guest speaker or panelist, but I'm gonna throw 2 cents in here before Dr. Smithmeyer comes in. I'm just gonna blow the horn, toot the horn for GBA, because GBA is definitely an entity that offers that education, and we want to enrich the lives of the end user by helping the regulators to become more cognizant of the uses of blockchain technology and how users can be safe with rated, or I should say, I want to say validated or certified blockchain solutions. But Dr. Smithmeyer, let's hear your response to this.
I could not agree more that is one of the biggest things we have to do is we have to actually get to the regulators and talk to them, because as we're seeing with some of the bills that are coming out here in the United States, they'd be awesome in 2012. They would have been really cool back then, but a lot of them are not taking into account more modern technologies and more expanses. A lot of the bills just target one specific cryptocurrency. They don't target across the board. And it's not because these people don't want the progress to come forward. It's because the people that have the money are the ones that are pushing these old school things. It was like when we're talking about social media platforms, you weren't hearing all the little platforms talking and getting to speak in front of Congress. It was just Mike Zuckerberg in his booster seat sitting there in front of Congress telling them what they're supposed to do. This is a problem because we need people on the cutting edge. You need people that are established, and you need people that are experts in the field to go to Congress and talk. And one of the ways that we're doing this is we're working with our friends up in New Hampshire with Congressman Amon. He has been pushing this very big. He has a very active cryptocurrency and legislature group. And if you guys want to check out good laws at the state level here in the United States, I would highly recommend looking at some of this work Keith's doing. I'm also working with Jim Rigsby here in Pennsylvania, trying to get a Pennsylvania cryptocurrency policy law out there, which means it's not just me going in and saying this is what the law should be. It's me going in and saying, let me talk to people so that the representatives can bring in what the people need. Because I have an opinion, I have a very important opinion. Everybody in the world's opinion is important. However, the reason we have representatives is because we don't live in a pure democracy and a mob rule. We live in where people's opinions need to come together and do what's best for everybody. And I really think that's important. And we also have been reaching out through the Mazaquin Network and the Catawba Indian tribes to ensure that at the indigenous level, we're also seeing solid laws being put together. So reaching out to them is so important. GBA, with our monthly functions, is bringing these people in to learn. But one of the best ways to do, if you're an American citizen, please write to your congressman or senator. And if you are an international citizen, please write to your Ministry of Interior or your ambassador to the United States and say, please go to the GBA events. Please bring this information home so that people can learn and people can lead with what they've learned.
That was well put.
All right, come on in, Ryan.
Yeah, so just to comment on a little bit more on is blockchain safe, right?
Thank you.
So on the one hand, I'll say blockchain is as safe as the handler is educated, right? And that goes for the average user as well as regulators or anybody else involved in leading or running a company.
Okay.
It's as safe as you are educated on it. That said, also, while the beauty of it is that it is democratized financial tools, democratized tech stack, and anyone can get educated and access these things. Not everybody necessarily needs to, right? Especially when, we're supposed to have services, institutions, governments looking out for the best interest of their people, right? And so to your point, Chris, call your congressman, send that letter. You don't have to touch blockchain other than to know it's important and express that value to your leadership and insist that they take their time to do their job, which we hired them for, which we pay them for, and go learn the tools of their trade. And their trade is legislation and regulation and governance. Those are all the tools of blockchain, right? Any DAO is regulation, financial instruments, treasury management, governance. That's what government is, right? And so while we want the concept of borderless DAOs and the ability for these different tools to really operate beyond the traditional concepts of states and boundaries and to be accessible to any individual, wherever they're from, whatever their history or their ethnicity is, it's also very valuable to any of these existing institutions, which throughout the world have a declining level of trust with their constituency, and to regain that trust by getting educated and using these tools that eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse and demonstrate that they are doing the job they were asked to do.
Fabulous. Fabulous. And so we have, I guess, a bit of a saying in EazyBot. We're often talking about serving our community from a perspective of putting people first. And so we say when people is your purpose, there's always profit in your progress. And Dr. Rodriguez and yourself, Ryan, you really just encompassed the embodiment of that saying. When Dr. Rodriguez writes in the chat, when we design with people in mind, and when inclusion is the goal, not just innovation, blockchain becomes more than code. She writes, it becomes a catalyst for dignity, resilience, and opportunity. And so globally, there are many peoples that are lacking opportunity. The opportunity is there, but we also need the lawmakers, the regulators, to be on board with that technology so that the opportunity exists in equivalent fashion for all individuals involved. So a really good point. And I'm glad that's recorded, Ryan. We'll be replaying that over and over again, my friend. Dr. Bombay, comment or question, come on in, friend.
Greetings, family. Shalom, namaste, and all that good stuff to everybody. If there was just one word I could use, I'd probably happy Bitcoin. But I'm part of the government with the League of Indian Nations in North America. I'm the medicine man for them. I'm working on the very first treaty amongst two major Indian nations in America. And we're going to expand that out so that we can get a major treaty going with everybody. And we have a treaty with the United States and so forth. Now, we're looking at the bank situation and the situation with transactions amongst the different nations and so forth. Who can I put the chief onto that he can talk to in reference to that for the nation? Anybody?
Can I throw something out there?
Yeah, that'll be a quick comment for Gerard. Go ahead, Gerard.
Yeah. So Charles, it's a little off topic on this particular talk, but we are currently working on a project called tracking government spending on blockchain. And so if you guys are interested, if that's a somewhat part of your agreement, right? How you guys would track spending amongst the nations, then that would be something clearly that I think we could help you with, because we are working with members at all governments, at all levels of governments, from local to national. In fact, we're even in the international space. But this is a really hugely important project, because so much of government spending essentially, and it gets lost, right? I mean, in some cases nefarious, but in a lot of cases it's just not good tracking, right? The Pentagon has hundreds of $billion budget. They've not been able to pass an audit in 8 years. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And even we're working with we're talking to some folks in Miami-Dade County. They've got taxpayers who've spent money on a tree planting program, and people don't see any trees planted. So they're asking the question, well, where's the money going to? And then there's no answers. Right. So when you're talking about nations essentially engaging in financial transaction relationships, right? The U.S. has given tons of money to Ukraine, right? And Ukraine can't account for it. Well, neither can the U.S. Pentagon, right? But these are challenges that nations have, and so if we're going to be able to trust one another with the money, we've got to be able to have visibility and tracking. So if you'd like to reach out to me, I'd be happy to help you from that perspective.
Yes, sir. How do I reach out?
So, Dr. Bombay, just communicate with me, and I'll make sure to facilitate that meeting. Okay.
Beautiful. And I don't know if Chris has something to add to it. If he does, I'll listen to that first, and I have a second question.
Okay. All right. One moment. And
I just also wanted to put.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say another great contact on that is the grant working group head, Rachel Harris. She's an Alaska Native, and she's very, very involved with tribal communications. If you want somebody that can help work across multiple nations, that would be another good group with the GBA to sit in and talk to Rachel, because she is incredibly invested in that area, and she would love to work with you guys on that as well.
Yeah, that would be great. And how can I reach through you, Charlie?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
God is great. God is great. God is great. Also, one last thing, and it just happened. They're getting rid of the pennies, so now we don't have no more pennies, right? But how is the crypto going to be transactional when you're talking about, let's say, with the new cars, let's say they have the computer, everything's computerized. And then now they'll also be able to do blockchain and mix all that together. I get it. AI and all that's coming together in a wonderful way. I guess we're going to see the evolution of it. How will they handle small transactions? Let's say I'm going and got to pay $1 toll, which I just did last night coming from New York. $1 toll. Now, how is the crypto going to be able to handle that without high fees? Because you're paying $1 for a toll, but then you're paying maybe what? 10 cents, 20 cents, 30 cents for the fees. How will that work out in the future?
Sure.
Or am I just on the wrong track?
No, you're good. Good. You're fine, Dr. Bombay. Dr. Smithmeyer, then Greg, come on in.
There's different ways to deal with that. One of the
Oh, Dr. Smith, I'm sorry, you got muted. Go ahead and unmute yourself. That's my fault.
Sorry about that. There's a couple ways to deal with that. The first way is looking at the chain dynamics. One of the big things that I like to talk to people about is how each chain is a different tool. There's not a chain out there that can do everything. And if we use the right chain for the right process, that allows us to deal with that. So whenever you're looking at something with a low value transaction but high volume, you want something with a low gas fee matrix or a zero gas fee matrix. And what that allows for you to do is it allows you to do those smaller transactions. Those systems tend to have smaller blocks, which means that they can do something very specific. And then whenever you're looking at something like Bitcoin or Ethereum or some of the legacy blockchains that are known for having a little bit high, well, Ethereum having higher fees, they are good at as a store of wealth. They're really a good way to do that and for large scale transactions. But as we've seen the layer twos like Avalanche, Tron, Polygon, or even the alternative layer ones like Constellation, or which is technically a layer 0, it's not actually a layer 1, and Solana. These are more set up for the small scale transactions where Bitcoin is really set up for large scale investment. Ethereum's really set up for large scale investment. And whenever we start using tools properly, it works really well. But this is one of the things where the government has to adjust because as we've seen, sometimes they use a bulldozer whenever they could use a garden trowel to dig something up. And we need to make sure we're using the right tools. And I'm going to defend my pennies, by the way. I'm keeping my pennies. So thank you.
Absolutely. Come on in, Greg.
So yeah, yeah. So basically, I agree with Dr. Smithmeyer on the layer twos that Lightning is right now how you would pay that toll in Bitcoin. One of the other ways that those will be dealt with is off-chain transactions, and what I mean by that is a model very similar to how they pay the tolls today in dollars. They pay the tolls in dollars today, where you put $20 at a time onto your toll tag. At least here in Texas, it's like $12 or $20 somewhere in there. And then whenever you drive through a toll causeway, a transaction is made off chain between your account with the toll provider and their treasury. So does that make sense?
It does. It does. It does. Absolutely.
Awesome. And I was going to say with Lightning, if you're making $5 a day by having your money in the Lightning network to begin with, then a 12-cent transaction fee is basically negligible for, you know, a $2, $5 transaction. So it'll end up offsetting.
Overall, blockchain tech can reduce the cost of transactions. But one point I want to get back to, Ryan, and Ryan said it, Ryan Munn, he was talking about there's a history of waste, fraud, and abuse in traditional finance. And so Gerard mentioned things like putting government spending on blockchain to kind of promote a level of accountability, being able to track funds, and think about blockchain technology being able to, and it can, we know it can, but blockchain technology being able to reduce that or minimize that waste, fraud, and abuse, that history of it that Ryan was talking about. Now you have access to more resources that can go towards helping some underserved community, or in general, just helping communities to develop. So it's sort of like a reinvestment program, a community reinvestment program where we're tracking their financial resources. We gotta beat on them. They're not wasted, or there's no fraudulent activity going on. There's no abuse of those because blockchain technology is involved. And now we have a purpose, or we can repurpose those funds to help with this conversation of economic inclusion. Blockchain seems to be the solution that we need in the current climate to minimize that waste, fraud, and abuse. And then those funds can go towards what they need to go towards. Would you agree with that, Ryan? Bit of an assessment on what you were talking about?
Yeah, definitely. And I would even elaborate as well, because, a lot of folks in the crypto space, like was mentioned, are thinking about, buy this coin and get wealthy, right? And certainly it's nice for that to be available, but frankly, the majority of people in the world don't have anything to invest, right? So on the one hand, they need skills. But in order for them to even get skills, they need access to education. We need infrastructure that's there to hire them and serve their needs. And so, the idea of, whether it's the toll operations being, even if they ran their own blockchain that rolled up daily or every 6 hours to make sure it was a low cost of transactions, that operation becomes highly accountable. And so where this starts to really apply to everybody is debt financing, right? In order to build things in our world, we need capital. And we're not going to get that by getting everybody to invest because everybody doesn't have money. But we can get large groups of people to crowd finance what their needs are. And then also on the other side of that, have the guardrails in place to ensure that those communities who are typically at risk or underserved to begin with are not now being exploited by unfair rates and fees that have historically been charged by traditional lending institutions. And so, creating these guardrails creates accessibility, and it creates accountability and transparency on how those services are delivered. It means that when that money is financed and goes to a developer to build a school in the community, that we can know that that money is being well spent responsibly and actually putting bricks together to build that school. And then that school is in place, educating people, and also has, again, tokens aside, a system of accountability ingrained that ensures that the people that get educated have a credential to show for that, so that they can then parlay that into the workforce or into a contract and provide those skills to the community.
Fabulous. Good point. Fabulous, fabulous. So I don't want to say taking it a step further, but you ever get those requests for donations? So think about being a philanthropist and having specific causes that you donate funds to, and these causes are supposed to serve communities that need it, right? And now the fundraising organization, their budget or whatever they're doing is on blockchain. So there can't be any waste, fraud, and abuse of those funds. The community that's intended to get the resources that we're donating, they actually get those resources. So improving communities simply by having that level of accountability that blockchain technology offers. So this is a great conversation about economic inclusion and blockchain technology's role. And keep in mind, this is not an exhaustive conversation. We could have gone on for 4 hours, but you guys know we only get the one. So we're coming to a head. Do we have any closing questions or last minute comments? Reverend Shorter, you're free to jump in if you have any closing remarks.
I think it was a great talk. I think everyone covered what we really need to be focusing on. And just like Gerard said, literacy is going to be the most important part of this thing, and definitely get into our politicians, and they're going to need the literacy. So I think everyone's right on the nose, and especially with focusing on making sure people in the underserved communities, they're going to need the most education, and making sure that they're not, part of the great scheme of the fraud. I like that part as well. It was everyone touched on great points, and I hope that we get to a point where we're talking about how all of this is working.
That would be a good conversation to have. And guest speakers, if you don't mind, go ahead and mimic Dr. Rodriguez's example. Just provide your LinkedIn's if people want to reach out to you, or whatever contact information you want to put in the chat. I'm always appreciative of your support of the cryptocurrency working group coming out of the GBA. But that concludes our session for this month. I don't recall what we're doing next month, but there is another topic of conversation on the 4th Thursday of the following month. So you're free to tune in. It'll be the same time, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or as Bob likes to let me know, daylight time. That'll be a recurring monthly meeting. Gerard, you are welcome to close this out, my friend.
No, Charles, listen, you did a great job. I want to thank all the speakers. Please feel free to throw your contact information in the chat if you guys want to talk to each other. We try to create an open forum where people can connect, communicate, and collaborate. And we just stay plugged in. We'd love to see you next month, and just continue this relationship and dialogue. So you guys have a bodacious day.
Bodacious. I knew that was coming. So I'll stick around a few moments longer, making sure people can collect what they need to from the chat related to the guest speakers. And if anyone has any pertinent questions for me, feel free to ask. But again, we appreciate you. Signing out.